Have you ever found yourself dreaming about doing something big with your life, yet feeling completely drained when it comes to actually taking the first step? You might tell yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," but somehow that tomorrow keeps getting pushed further away. Deep down, you genuinely want to improve your life, maybe by getting in shape, learning a valuable skill, building something meaningful, or even writing a book, but instead of moving forward, you end up scrolling endlessly on your phone or distracting yourself with things that don't really matter. It can feel frustrating and confusing, like you're stuck in a loop you can't break. But here's the truth that most people overlook. This isn't about you being permanently lazy or incapable. It's about how your mind reacts to effort and discomfort. When something feels overwhelming or too difficult, your brain naturally looks for easier alternatives to protect your energy. That's why starting feels so hard. The good news, though, is that this pattern is not permanent. What you're experiencing is simply a habitus. Habits can be reshaped with the right approach. Instead of blaming yourself, it's more helpful to understand how your behavior works and then gently guide it in a better direction. Once you realize that change is possible, even small shifts in your daily actions can lead to significant transformation over time. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to take action is because their goals feel far too large and intimidating. When you think about writing an entire book, running daily, or thinking to make large amount of money, your mind immediately focuses on the scale of the effort required. That pressure alone can make you freeze before you even begin. The key to overcoming this is surprisingly simple. Shrink the task until it feels almost effortless. Instead of aiming to write hundreds of pages, focus on writing just one sentence today. It may sound insignificant, but that single sentence breaks the barrier of inaction. Think of it like climbing a mountain. You don't leap to the top in one move. You take one step at a time, steadily and consistently. The same idea applies to any goal you have. If you want to learn something new, don't try to master everything at once. Just start with a tiny piece, one concept, one chord, one short session. These small actions may seem minor in isolation, but they build momentum. Over time, those tiny efforts stack up and lead to real progress. The focus should not be on achieving perfection immediately, but on making steady, manageable progress. When tasks feel doable, you're far more likely to begin, and starting is often the hardest part. Another powerful way to move past this cycle is by creating simple, reliable routines, instead of relying on motivation alone. Motivation is unpredictable, comes and goes depending on your mood, energy, and circumstances. Routines, on the other hand, provide structure and consistency. They reduce the need to make decisions in the moment, because the action becomes part of your normal flow. For example, if you want to exercise regularly, don't depend on feeling motivated each morning. These small habits might not seem life-changing on their own, but they build a foundation for consistency. And consistency, more than anything else, is what leads to long-term results. When your actions become part of a routine, you no longer have to struggle with starting. You simply follow the pattern you've created. Still, even with smaller tasks and better routines, getting started can feel like the toughest hurdle. That's where a simple but effective strategy comes in. Commit to just 2 minutes. Instead of pressuring yourself to complete a full task, promise that you'll only work on it for 2 minutes. That's it. No more, no less. Want to read? Open the book and read a single page. Need to clean your space? Start with just one small area. The purpose of this approach is to eliminate resistance. When the commitment feels tiny, your brain is less likely to push back. And once you begin, something interesting often happens. You naturally feel like continuing. Starting creates momentum, much like pushing a ball down a hill. The first push requires effort, but after that, it becomes easier to keep moving. To make this even more effective, you can reward yourself after completing those 2 minutes. At the end of the day, it's important to remember that everyone you admire once faced the same struggle. No one starts out being perfectly disciplined or endlessly motivated. The difference is that they didn't wait for the perfect moment. They took small steps, even when it felt uncomfortable or uncertain. You don't need to have everything figured out before you begin. You just need to take that first step, no matter how small it seems. Think of your goals like a tiny spark. Right now, it might barely be visible, but every small action you take adds fuel to that spark. Keep adding to it consistently, and eventually it will grow into something powerful. There will be setbacks along the way, and that's completely normal. Failing doesn't mean you've lost it, means you're learning. What truly matters is your willingness to get back up and try again. So instead of waiting for the perfect conditions, start with what you have, right where you are. Make your tasks simple, build routines that support you, and take action even if it's just for a couple of minutes. Over time, these small efforts will create meaningful change. And you'll realize that progress was never about being perfect, was about showing up again and again.